Please welcome Stephen Manderson, otherwise known as Professor what a way to start. We're sorry we're here under those circumstances, but this is something so important to you and why you're fronting this documentary. Because, you know, terrible time for you. You were only 24 years old when your dad took his life. What have you discovered about male suicide doing this programme?
Ultimately, I guess the difference between someone that would end up doing that and someone who wouldn't is just the ability to tolerate how you feel in yourself. And obviously, if you don't share that with people, it becomes a lot harder to tolerate.
I mean, I read the statistic, which really shocked me today. It said suicide is the biggest killer of men under 45 in Britain.
If you ask someone who hadn't seen that figure, they'd never say suicide. If they did, it would be a long way down the list. And it's just frightening that that's not, you know, common knowledge.
And it's much more than women, isn't it? That's the statistics say. That shocked me. I don't know why, but, you know, it doesn't seem obvious to you, I suppose.
Yeah, but I think women are a lot more comfortable amongst themselves talking about how they feel and what's going on, and that's a huge problem for men.
Yes.
You know, it's that you know, age-old British stiff upper lip as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's the most common lie told. How are you? I'm fine.
But where you grew up, Clacton, you grew up in a really tough environment anyway.
Yeah.
Even though you grew up with your nan and you only saw your dad intermittently, did you ever discuss how you felt with people?
Do you know what? The great thing about the programme was that was one of the first times me and my nan have ever really discussed what happened.
Wow.
Really?
That's your mum and dad. I mean, look, they look like babies themselves, so young.
I know, and the lack of cars. It doesn't look like that now. Norfolk Estate is, you can't find a parking space.
And you look very like your dad.
You reckon?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, absolutely.
And how has it affected you through your life since, you know, you're 24 years old when it happened? How has it made you think about life?
It made me a hell of a lot more self-aware, which I think is a good thing. It wasn't, you know, through the programme I found out that it wasn't just my dad who committed suicide. Sorry, not committed suicide, it's not a crime anymore.
No.
He took his own life, but
so
his brother,
his brother
as well
that's an expression.
took his own life, his brother did as well 2 years prior. They call it a perfect storm when there's a string of events that can happen which make it more likely for someone to take their own life. And my dad encountered pretty much everything.
Yeah. And then does that make you... Sorry, Jen. Does that make you worry then that that's happened to two members of your family? Do you ever worry about your own state of mind, you know, when you're down or...
Yeah, because I've suffered with depression, and anxiety is something that I've had since I was a baby. I used to say to my nan, I've got a bellyache, which meant I ended up taking a lot of time off school, with doctors putting cameras down my neck looking for a physical ailment, which wasn't there. But I didn't have the tools to say I'm anxious as an adult. I know when I wake up, and more often than not, it's there. It's weird when it's not. I'm like, where's my
really,
little...
so most of the time you have that.
And doing this programme, has it helped you?
Yeah, I think so, because I went into it quite naively. The production company I worked with were really on the ball, and they said, you know, do you want someone on hand to talk to while you're doing this? And I was really, and I'm not a naive person, I'm suspicious if anything. And I said, no, I'll be fine, you know, this is about helping others, it's not really about me. But as we got into it, and I started to find out things for the first time on camera, and it brought up feelings that both I thought I dealt with, but also that I just wasn't aware of. I even had.
What do you hope this will do for other young men dealing with similar issues?
I think the genre which I hail from, rap, hip-hop, is one that's full of bravado, much the same as, you know, most male sport as well.
Tough guy stuff,
and I've always said there's a very big difference between being hard, which is what, you know, most men feel they have to project, and being strong. Strong is admitting when you have a problem. And the only reason I was scared for this programme to go out was because people were going to see me in that state.
Vulnerable.
But you've got past that to come on now and talk about it.
That's part of the problem. The reason that I worry about it going out and people seeing me at my lowest and being that vulnerable is the problem. That's the problem. So hopefully...
But then you will have done so much good when people see that, because you do have that media, that social platform.
I just hope it helps if it saves one person.
Yeah, and... autobiography, Professor Green Lucky, is out. Do you still feel lucky?
Yeah, massively.
Despite all that?
Yeah. People always ask about the title, and I think fortunate would probably have been a better word, but it would have been a rubbish title for a book. You know, I am lucky in that I can look back on my childhood now, and fair enough, if my mum and dad weren't in my life, how I would have liked them to have been at the time. But I had love, support, a roof over my head.
And lucky that you met the beautiful Millie. And
Yes.
very happy marriage.
What a great couple.
Yeah, I am.
Now that must have changed your whole process, your thought process and everything. You must feel much safer now.
Kind of, but I don't rely on her to, and this is something I've said before, but I don't rely on her to fix my problems. That's not what our relationship is about. If I need help, I need to find the right person to give me that help. You know, I do see a therapist, and that's one of the best things I've done. But that's recent. It's not something I've done a long time ago. That's in the last year, really.
Wow.
But I don't think you should rely on your partner to fix those problems. You
No,
should be there
that's
to
up to
support
you.
each other. But that's because then if she
It's a
doesn't
great
fix the
book.
problems.
It's a
really
fascinating
good
book.
book.
And I know you said you started off with a ghostwriter and then thought, no, I've got to do this myself.
It's got your
Well, it just
voice.
didn't
Yeah.
sound
Your
like
voice.
me. It had to.
Yeah.
It was funny sending changes back, and that the publishers are going, "You're saying the exact same thing, just differently." And I was like, yeah, "That's the point."
You know, I wasn't really expecting, what happened. And of course, the lyric and the song, and, it was quite difficult because I thought, God, this is going to be really hard to sit through this. But then you've got to think of him, and it's his moment. It was very emotional, yeah.
And she
I mean,
was a
you
big
couldn't
fan,
speak, could
wasn't she? Massive fan of
She
the
was
show.
a huge fan, Ruth,